Hi everyone, it's that time of the year again. I'll be talking about a couple of horror games that I've played recently, so I hope you find some of them interesting. The first game I'll talk about is The Closing Shift. You'll probably recognize this one if you've seen other games by the same devs, Chilla's art. It has the same VHS visuals as their previous titles. So in this game, you play as a girl who works a late night shift at a coffee shop. All you gotta do is go to work, brew drinks, and clean the place up. It's surprisingly chill for a horror game, at least until you start seeing weird customers and hearing about how stalking cases are on the rise. The premise of the game is probably obvious by now, but I won't get into it. Let's just say that this game is best experienced if you play it yourself, but I will mention my thoughts about the whole thing. Like, I love supernatural horror stuff, but this game had none of that. What it did have was a situation that felt so real that it made the experience even more terrifying. Like, the game did an amazing job of capturing that feeling of being watched and getting anxious over how far this threat will go with each passing day. It's a situation that can happen to anyone, anywhere, which makes it so much scarier than the usual ghost stuff. But aside from the horror aspect about the game, one thing that it does really well is the barista gameplay. Making drinks was so fun that I missed out on a few details the first time, like how some customers will start staring or talking about strange things happening around town. So yeah, The Closing Shift plays like a Starbucks simulator where you grab different cups, add milk, coffee, syrup, and serve pastries. It was a little confusing to learn how to make everything at first though, mostly because the game's a little clunky. Like, you gotta place the cups in a specific area or else it won't let you add milk, for example. The ticket system confused me when I started too. So every time a customer orders a drink, you have to grab their order ticket. And to serve the drink to that person, you gotta place the drink on the counter and then give them the same ticket. There are tutorial videos that show you how to do all this, but there's no text or anything, so it took me a while to figure it out, especially when dealing with multiple orders. But once I got the hang of things, it was really fun. I loved encountering all the different customers in the game. They range from normal to just plain weird. I just wish that this game had an endless coffee mode. I would totally play it just to make drinks and vibe to the cafe ambience. But yeah, The Closing Shift is my favorite Chilla's art game so far, and it's definitely one of the most unique horror games that I've played recently. If you want to check it out, it's only on PC, but it takes about an hour to complete. Next up is Iron Lung. I wasn't really sure what to expect when I played this, but I was intrigued by how the story's set up. So Iron Lung begins by stating that every star and planet disappeared one day. Only the people who live in space stations and starships were left behind. Since supplies were running out, people became desperate to find natural resources on different moons. One moon stood out because it literally has an ocean of blood. As a convict who's tasked to explore the moon, you were sealed in a makeshift submarine that wasn't designed to go into that blood ocean's depth. To make things worse, you have no training on how to do anything there, but if you succeed, then you'll earn your freedom. The submarine in the game actually has a window, but it's sealed shortly after you're dropped in. There's a way to get a glimpse of what's in front of you though, but to do that, you have to take these very low quality photos. So all you can really rely on is the map. The map contains target areas with coordinates on them. Once you get to one point, you just need to snap a photo and then go to the next one. Now to move the submarine, you just click on buttons that either turn it or make it go forward or backwards. When you're near a wall, the submarine will start beeping and showing you the direction you gotta avoid on the compass. At first, it seemed like it would get boring having to move the submarine just by looking at coordinates, but I got completely immersed. It gave me this very unique experience too, like I was actually imagining which part of the map I was in, based on the coordinates and walls along the way. And part of what made it work really well is the audio. Sounds like beeping and creaking from the submarine made the whole thing feel more eerie and claustrophobic. But yeah, Iron Lung's a short game that took me like an hour to beat. I know I said earlier that The Closing Shift is one of the most unique horror games that I've played recently, but I'll say it again for this game. Iron Lung's something else, and I think it's a great game to play if you want a different horror game experience on PC. Next is Yomawari Midnight Shadows. This is actually the second Yomawari game, but it's a standalone story that doesn't require you to play the first game. I actually played the previous game on my channel a long time ago, Yomawari Night Alone. Midnight Shadows is very similar, at least from what I remember, since both games mix cute chibi characters with scary ghosts. So Midnight Shadows is about Yui and Haru, two girls who just finished watching fireworks on a mountain. On their way back home, creepy stuff starts happening and Yui gets lost, which leads to Haru spending every evening searching for her lost friend. I don't know why she doesn't just leave everything to the adults, or at least go out during the day, but I guess this game's story wouldn't exist if she did all that. Anyway, ghosts wander around the street at night, so you spend most of the game running and hiding from them. Your heart will start beating faster too when ghosts are nearby, and some of them can be exposed with your flashlight. To hide from ghosts, you can go to different objects like signs and bushes. Some ghosts can be distracted too by throwing an item, but I rarely needed to do that since I could outrun most of them or just hide somewhere. It can be difficult though because sprinting has limited stamina, and the more nervous your character is, the faster her stamina depletes. Now to save the game, you just collect coins and offer them to shrines, which are also used to fast travel to other shrines in town. Notes and collectible items are scattered around too, so they serve as rewards for exploring. But I never went out of my way to collect those things just because it felt way too risky sometimes. Like I found myself thinking, do I really want to go into some dark corner and grab that shiny thing, or should I just run away? Now sound-wise, the game relies heavily on its ambience, making it feel like you're really exploring haunted streets late at night. It's very effective despite all the cheap jump scares. Like you could be hearing crickets one moment, then a few seconds later there's some ghost groaning and getting closer and closer to you. So yeah, expect to die a lot in this game. Some ghosts will come out of nowhere and punish you for not reacting fast enough. It can get annoying, especially if the last shrine or checkpoint you've been to is far away. The bosses in particular require a lot of trial and error, since they're defeated by either solving puzzles or by simply surviving a chase sequence. But I still enjoyed the game by the end of it. I think it improved on a lot of the stuff from the first game. The story's a little sad, just like Night Alone, but it has a lot of interesting symbolism that had me questioning everything. Oh, and it took me 9 hours to beat the whole thing. If you're interested in Midnight Shadows, it's out on PC and PlayStation consoles. Ravenous Devils. This one's not as spooky as the previous games, but it still counts. Ravenous Devils has you playing as Hildred and Percival, a couple who run both a tailor shop and a pub. Why is this a horror game? Well,
I should clean this from time to time.
The game will have you serving pies with human meat in them. I'm sure this concept sounds similar to the story of Sweeney Todd. I actually love the Tim Burton film, so when I discovered that this game was kind of like a video game version of that, I knew that I had to play it. So Ravenous Devils is basically a management cooking simulator game. Each day is split into like 10 minutes in real life. During that time, you have to move the camera throughout the building and make both characters do various tasks. Percival manages the tailor shop above the pub, so you have to wait for a customer to walk in, make him stab them to death, strip their body, and then drop it into a trap door leading to the basement's kitchen. Percival then cleans up, patches their clothes, and sells them at full price. Meanwhile, Hildred will grind the body, prepare ingredients, and serve food to the customers. It's a great business model, actually. They don't need to go out and buy a lot of materials and ingredients. Everything comes to them. But yeah, that's the basics of the game. It becomes an almost meditative gameplay loop. It helps that the music feels so out of place too. So out of place that it fits perfectly. Like if you were to listen to the music without looking at what was happening on the screen, it would sound sort of like a normal restaurant game. At the end of the day, you can use your earnings to purchase upgrades, buy more equipment, and add new food items to the menu. Once you progress enough, the story continues too. Yep, you're not just endlessly making money. At least in the main story, you get letters from mysterious characters and you end up meeting a bunch of odd people that may or may not end up in your menu. It was entertaining to watch and surprisingly well made. I think my only complaint about it is that the story just kinda ends. As for the gameplay, it can be frustrating later on because it lacks balance. Like, Hildred was so much busier than Percival in my playthrough. She manages both the kitchen and the pub, so it takes more time for her animations to execute whenever I give her a task. Customers would start piling up and getting impatient in the pub, so it got stressful. But the game's like 5 hours long, so it didn't really bother me as much. I feel like if it was longer than that, then it would have really dragged the game down. Ravenous Devils was a very fun game though. If you want to play a different kind of management sim where you play as evil people, then I suggest this one. I think it's out on every platform too. The last game I'll be talking about is Little Nightmares 2. I remember playing the first game a long time ago, and it was alright. I don't remember much of it apart from that one level that was very similar to the movie Spirited Away. So the second game, it got my attention way more than Little Nightmares 1. In this game, you play as Mono, a boy with a paper bag over his head who finds Six, a girl being held prisoner by this big hunter guy. Together, they go out to find the source of a strange transmission coming from a distant tower. Most of the things that happen in the story are open to interpretation, but one thing's for sure, you're going to see a lot of bizarre stuff throughout the game. Just like Little Nightmares 1, this one has you playing as a tiny child that's exploring large levels and solving puzzles. The puzzles can be as simple as pushing a box to get to a ledge, but others can be a bit more obscure, like you'll need to get creative to find a solution. So I got stuck in some parts of the game. What I do like about Little Nightmares 2 though is how it treats Six, your AI-controlled companion. You don't need to worry about her getting into trouble or anything, which saves the game from feeling like one big escort mission. She helps you complete puzzles and even guides you through certain areas, and I really liked how you can hold hands with her. It was adorable. But one thing that got annoying after a while was all the deaths. It reminded me of Midnight Shadows when it comes to that. There's a lot of trial and error when you go through the levels or enter a chase sequence, so dying a lot is part of the game, I guess. At least the death animations were pretty creative. It was interesting to see all the different ways that Mono could get caught by the large creepy monsters. But I'd say that a bunch of the stuff that happens in the game in general is creative. Like, there were points where I literally thought, wow, this is cool. It was such a surreal treat with a story that had so much detail and foreshadowing that it blew me away as the credits rolled. I don't want to say or show too much because, just like the previous games I talked about, it's so much more impactful the first time you personally experience it yourself. It took me around 6 hours to beat the game. If you want to play it, it's out on every platform. Let me know what you thought about the video, and thank you to my patrons at Patreon for supporting my channel. Happy Halloween to everyone if you're watching this around the time I uploaded it. I've seen some interesting horror games that came out recently, so I'm planning to play some of those. Hopefully they'll be good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.